Thank you, Pat. Give me a hug, man. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm an Al-Anon from West Blockton, Alabama, and my name's Bo Templin. Hello. Hi. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that y'all, that Ruth called and invited me and got me up here. Doggone it, I love the parties. And that's the way I think of this. That's what I believe. As you hear my story today, you'll find out that I was introduced to this way of life Labor Day weekend, 1982, and it was at the party. It was at the Tuscaloosa AA Al-Anon anniversary, and I walked into a room down there that bigger than this room. And depending on whose story you hear, it was somewhere between 500 and 750 of y'all. And we had just picked my wife up at a treatment center. And boy, I tell you, what a party. And that thing about attraction rather than promotion. I fell in love with you that night, and I've been going to every party I could go to since then. So, because I think that's what we're doing this weekend. I think we're celebrating our recovery. And if you're relatively new and you haven't been to many of these, maybe this is your first one, I hope that before you leave here, you fall in love with these parties. There's a lot of them that go on all around us. And so make all of them you can, because there's another side to it. A lot of old-timers hang out here at the parties, and I love rubbing up against the old-timers and worrying them. And, but you know what? They want you to. They won't tell you that, but they want you to. They're walking around here with 40, 45 years of all this knowledge and recovery, and we need to get it out of them. Hell, they're going to die and take it with them. You know? So I'll tell you, buddy, I find the old timers, you'll see old Bo up there. He'll be talking with them. So thank you for having me up here. I bring you greetings from my wife, Shirley. She, July 29th, celebrated 33 years of sobriety. We've got a 110-pound black lab. Her name is Spook, and we're looking for an Aladog group because she qualifies. I tell you. And but I bring you greetings, and those greetings come from Serenity Hill. That's where we live, and we'll talk more about Serenity Hill as we go. Another thank you that I want to get done before I forget it. If you're sitting in this room with me today and you're a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, from the very bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you. And I just don't think we're doing that enough from Al-Anon anymore. You know, when I got here in '82, we told AA thank you regularly. We knew where our program came from, and we knew where our recovery was born. And so I want to say thank you, and I do this every time I get the opportunity. And I want to say thank you, AA, for two reasons. Number one, I want to thank you for being there July 29th, 1982, when my gal reached out her hand. Because you see, I'd lost her. The bottle had her, and I couldn't get her back. And I was driving myself crazy trying to find a way to get her sober and keep her sober. And I couldn't find it. And when she had her moment of clarity, July the 29th of 1982, and she reached her hand out, you had the hand of AA there for her. And you took her in and you put your arms around her and you didn't ask her a whole lot of questions, and you loved her back to health. And my wife didn't have to die from a fatal disease that we didn't even know she had. How could I ever repay the debt of gratitude that I feel for Alcoholics Anonymous? But remember, I told you two reasons. The other reason is I want to thank you for having this program available and ready for us, for the family members. And in 1951, when Al-Anon was born, and we said, can we have your 12-step program? You know, you just threw your arms open and said, sure you can. Said, come on in, and here's what we want you to do, family member. We want you to come in here, take these 12 spiritual principles, learn to implement them in your life on a daily basis, and learn how to live happy, joyous, and free, and it not be dependent on what another person does or does not do. And I'll forever be eternally grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous. So, got that done. Let's move on here. See, you'll understand that when I tell you that my sponsors never tell me which CD they're going to listen to. That's the way they keep control of my ego. And they know I've got an ego, and they know I've got an out-of-town talk, and they know I probably one day am going to try to do that out-of-town talk. But they know they have to keep that from happening. So when I get home, this may be one of them that they listen to, and one of the parts that Joe listens for real close is to make sure I thanked AA. So we got that in. When I introduced myself to you, I introduced myself as an Al-Anon, and we're going to talk about that for a few minutes. Because when I got here, I thought being married to Shirley made me an Al-Anon. And over the past 33 years, what I've learned is being married to Shirley qualified me for Al-Anon. It doesn't make me an Al-Anon. And there's several things that I do today on a regular basis in order to stand up here today and tell you I'm a member of Al-Anon. And I'm going to share 2 or 3 of them with you. First thing I'm share with you is I suit up and show up and occupy a chair in an Al-Anon meeting on a real, regular basis. Okay. Now I know that this is not that this is a program of action. I know you can't get it by osmosis, and I know because I tried. The first 7 months that I was here, I was showing up. And I was occupying that chair, and I was rubbing up against y'all, and I was trying to get your recovery to rub off on me. And it took 7 months for me to learn that this is a program of action, and I have to participate, and I have to take action. But I still believe today that it begins with suiting up and showing up and occupying that chair. Let me explain it to you this way. I can take that chair and I can go out to the back of our property down there in West Blockton, and I can put that chair in the middle of that chicken coop, and I can occupy that chair in the middle of that chicken coop every day for 20 years. And guess what? Yeah, I still won't be a chicken. Yeah. But listen to me, folks. If I do that every day for 20 years, it's at the end of that time, I'm going to know a whole lot about chickens. And I'm going to know a whole lot about how the successful chickens are getting it done. That's the reason I still believe that it starts with suiting up, showing up, and occupying that chair. In that meeting with those winners that were there for me when I got there and were willing to share this way of life with me. Now, the next thing I do in order to tell you I'm a member of Al-Anon is I have a home group. Now, remember, I'm sharing, this is just what worked for Bo. But when I got here Labor Day weekend 1982, I didn't need a home group. When I got here, I didn't need Al-Anon. There was nothing wrong with me. She had the problem, and if she didn't drink, we was going to be okay. And I'm going to tell you something. I believe that. You know, those AAs don't talk about denial. They talk about delusion. And I was in the delusion that was the way it was going to be. And So I didn't need a lot of meetings, but that treatment center that my wife went to, they had a thing up there called Family Week. I remember this back in 1982. And Family Week up there consisted of Monday through Friday, where you came up there and moved into the family wing and you lived up there for those 5 days. Now, we had 2 kids. Mike was 15, Sissy was 13. And so they wanted all 3 of us up there for Family Week. And so we made the arrangements and we went up there. And I walked in the door telling them, well, I don't know why I need to come up here. There's, and immediately got into an almost fist fight with them. But there was nothing wrong with me. Because, see, we got up there Monday morning, we walked down there, and that lady that was in charge of the family program, she said, Sissy, I want you down at this end of the hall in the room with Miss So-and-so. See, there was 5 different families going through Family Week. Said, Mike, I want you up at this end of the hall, and you'll be in the room with Mr. So-and-so. I said, well, just wait a minute. I said, you're putting my 2 teenage kids in rooms for a week with people that I don't know, people I don't know anything about, and I'm not so sure I approve of this. And she smiled at me real sweetly, and she said, well, it's not necessary for you to approve of it. She said, you're in room so-and-so, and you got 10 minutes to be unpacked and in the group room. But there was nothing wrong with me. Nothing wrong with me. But a couple of real important things happened up there during Family Week. Now, they call it Family Week. I call it Hell Week. Because but my, what an impression. Some things I took away from there. First thing I took away from there is I heard one of those counselors up there make this statement. He said, the ones that stay sober when they leave here are the ones that go to AA. And in the snap of your fingers, my job in life changed. And I became the driver. Yeah. Because, see, I've already told you, I was convinced if she didn't drink, we was going to be okay. He just told me if she went to AA, she wouldn't drink. So I became the driver. Right before we left up there, I heard one of them make the statement, it's a good idea to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. We did. If you're at Al-Anon, you understand that. At that time, we lived in Hueytown, Alabama, which was a suburb of Birmingham, so there was just plenty of AA meetings available to us. And so that was my job. So when Shirley got home, we started going to those 90 meetings. And we'd go in there and we'd walk inside, and I'd take her by the hand, come down here, and we'd sit on this front row. I'm sitting right there beside her. We're listening to that speaker, and if that speaker said something important, I'd pop her with that elbow. Yeah. Now, I was listening real close. Because, see, I knew she was still in a fog, and she was going to have questions, so I was going to have to be able to answer them when we got home. But I learned something about you AAs during that 90-day period. I learned that y'all got a real serious case of tunnel vision about a couple of areas of your program. One area that you're real serious about is an area called closed meetings. Because, we're jumping around. And the night came that we showed up there in Bessemer, Alabama, which was to become my home group 7 months later. And those guys met me at the door. They said, Bo, this is a closed meeting. It's for alcoholics only, and you'll not be able to come into this meeting. Shirley needs to come in here, but you'll not be allowed. I said, hold on a minute, guys. Y'all don't understand. It's my job. It's what I do. And they laughed about like you do. They said, "No, Bo, you're gonna have to abide by this one." But there's a meeting over in that room that you can go to tonight while she's out here in this meeting with us. And of course, that was the Al-Anon room. Now, I didn't have old-time sponsorship at that time. It took me 7 months to get old-time sponsorship. And I'm glad that God loved me enough that he gave me old-time sponsorship. And but I didn't have it that night. But see, the first thing that I was told when I got old-time sponsorship was that, Bo, from this point on, you will show up for every meeting you go to at least 30 minutes early, prepared to stay until it's over. A lot of AA and Al-Anon meetings are over in an hour, but not all of them are. So from this point on, you show up 30 minutes early, prepared to stay till it's over. And let me tell you something, 33 years later, because see, that's still our home group. 33 years later, I can't tell you how often, at 9 o'clock, 10 after 9, when that meeting's closing up, we're making another pot of coffee because there's somebody there that still needs to talk. And we're going to be there with them till the work's done, till the work's done. Let me tell you about showing up early. If you show up 30 minutes early, you get to chair a lot of meetings. Now, I don't mean pick the topics. I mean set the chairs up. Get the room ready for the meeting. Yeah, get there 30 minutes early, you get to chair them, set the chairs up. You get there 30 minutes early, you get to make a lot of coffee. Just exactly like you like it. You don't have to bitch about somebody else that made the coffee too strong or too weak. Yeah, get there early and make it yourself. But let me tell you the big thing, the most important thing. You get there 30 minutes early, you're going to be there when that newcomer comes in. And you're going to be one of the very first ones that can go over and welcome to a new way of life. Yeah. Now, I didn't have that way of life, those rules that night. It was 3 minutes to 8 for an 8 o'clock meeting when they pointed me over there to that room. I went over there and I stopped in the doorway and I looked, made a quick head count, 23 women. One other guy. And he was sitting right down front. Empty seat right beside him. I don't know who arranged that. So I hustled down there and I get that seat and they're beginning to open the meeting. And we had a real good Al-Anon meeting, and then the meeting's over. We close the meeting and he turns around and introduces himself to me. I said, "Kervin, I'm glad there's at least one other guy here." And he starts laughing. I said, "What are you laughing about?" He said, "Bo, I'm moving to Panama City Beach in the morning." He said, "This is my last meeting in Bessemer." And he ain't been back. He was telling the truth. Yeah. And then those gals started coming up to me. And they'd introduce themselves, and I said, "Well, hi, my name's Bo," and I'd stick my hand out, and they'd push my hand aside. Because, see, I belong to the huggingest group, maybe in Al-Anon. And they wanted to give me a hug. All right, let me tell you something. I wasn't real huggable. And so I just kind of pushed them away. Then the second one came up, did the same thing. And when the third one came up, I said, "Hold on a minute. Whoa." I said, "Maybe we need to have an understanding here. I'm not going to be coming in here much. The only reason I'm in here tonight is because they wouldn't let me stay out there with Shirley. And I'm sure this is a good program, and I'm sure some of you gals have really, really gotten a lot of good out of it. But you see, Shirley's been sober, almost 3 months now. And of course, all that was in a treatment center. And then I said, if she don't drink, we're going to be okay. I know what the problem is. I'm fooling with your wire. Have we? Okay, you still got it over there? Got it out here now? Okay. I'll leave this alone. We'll be all right. It's not on. I'll be darned. Yeah. So that's wireless, isn't it?
Listen to it. Lost it.
Got it?
I said it was it. I don't think so. Double it.
Listen to you. I thought something happened because I could hear it.
I'm an Al-Anon from West Blockton. So, where was I anyhow? Oh, hugging. Yeah. So I wasn't real huggable when I got here, and those gals started using some old time Al-Anon on me right at that point. Things that we just don't see it happening a whole lot anymore. But they began to very, very gently put their hooks in me. And they didn't tell me about it. But it was the things that held me here. It was the things that held me here for 7 months until I had my moment of clarity. And it started right there that night. Because, see, that we had one of our, they don't want me to call them old timers anymore. They want me to call them seasoned veterans. And at 33 years, I think I'm going to do that because I'm becoming one of them. But one of our seasoned veterans showed up and over there, and she grabbed me by the arm, said, "Come with me, Bo." And she took me to the back of that room where the door was, and she set a chair right inside the door. And she said, "Bo, from this point on, this is Bo's chair, Bo's seat in this room. And this is as far as you have to come into this room. You don't have to come down here and sit in the circle or be involved in what we're doing. You can just come in and sit down in this chair and listen and be and that way you won't feel pressured or anything like that." And then they did something else, and they assigned one of those gals in that room to me. Now, we're an old group. My group was born in 61, so we believe in rotation. So the woman would change every month. Now, let me explain to you what her job was. And in order to do that, I had to tell you how we close our meetings at my home group. We close our meetings by standing, holding hands, and saying the Lord's Prayer. Now, we've not had any group conscience meetings or votes or anything about changing that. That's old-time Al-Anon, and we're an old-time Al-Anon group, so we're going to stay with the Lord's Prayer. Now, having old-time sponsors, I've been taught that the Lord's Prayer ends with the word Amen. And I've been taught since I got my sponsors that I follow the written directions in this program and do exactly what the book says to do. I don't get to put Bo's perception or Bo's ideas in it. I follow the directions. And the Lord's Prayer ends with the word Amen. Therefore, Bo's not allowed to say anything after the word Amen. That's how strict my sponsors in my group that we are. And it's just old time recovery. My first sponsor that died on me, he told me, he said, "Bo, you bring me a copy of the Bible, and you open it up in there to the Lord's Prayer, and you show me one in there that says, Amen. Keep coming back. We'll work. It'll work. They'll work." Ain't in there. So I had to follow directions. I don't mind you doing it. If you happen to be holding hands with me, you'll just notice that I don't do it. I didn't make him mad, did I? Okay. So, now this lady that they assigned to me, her job. See, when I was raised in that Southern Baptist church. I lived down there in the Bible Belt. And so when the meeting was over and I was sitting back there in my chair and they'd stand to hold hands, I love the Lord's Prayer. So I'd walk up there and I'd hold hands with them. While I had my eyes closed saying the Lord's Prayer, well, whoever who was assigned to me would slip out, go back there and get between me and the door. And when they said, those gals knew when I said amen, I was dropping my hands and I was out of there. Well, I'd drop my hands and I'd turn, and there she was. And she was there to give me my going home hug. And see, the deal was I'd hug one to get out of there. I wasn't going to stick around and hug 23. And see, over a period of time, I became comfortable hugging. And now I'm one of the biggest huggers that you see around. You know, I tell everybody everywhere I go, I'm on hug detail. I'm out here gathering hugs. And I'll tell you why I feel that way about hugs today. I'm convinced that there's a spiritual healing that you transmit in hugs. I believe that's just how important they are, that there's a spiritual healing that goes on when we hug. So that was one of the first hooks that they began to use to keep me here. Second hook that they began to use to keep me here is a hook called laughter. You remember the laughter when you first got here? I'm not talking about the laughter you brought here. You know, the one that hurts your teeth. Not that one. No. I'm talking about that good, wholesome laughter that we're experiencing now. You know, I didn't have anything to laugh about when I got here. But that first meeting that I was in that night was full of laughter. And, well, it was a speaker meeting. And we had one of our seasoned veterans that was going to share her story that night. So they got the meeting opened and they introduced her and she came up front and she said, "Hi, my name's Doris, and it's been 14 years since I had to plan a murder." Yeah, the whole room erupted in laughter. Everybody except me. I'm sitting down there on that front row, and I said, "Man, I'll never admit that out loud." Because I'd been planning that murder just like most of y'all had. I was going to kill Shirley and tell God she died. But you know, before I left there that night, I realized that nobody was laughing at Doris. Everybody was laughing with her. And oh, this laughter has become so important. And if you, I'm going to give you a job to do. If you've got a few years here, and I want you to start watching when the newcomers come in. I won't tell them about it. You just watch them. Newcomers do not come in the door smiling. They came in the door like I did, frowning, because you're full of fear, you're full of guilt. Your life's not real good. You don't know whether this Al-Anon thing's going to work or not. And you won't be smiling. And So when I see that, I just very quietly say, God, we need a miracle. You need to start the miracle right now. And you start loving that person. And you start getting them to come back. And after a month or so, if they're coming back, the frown will go away. And when the frown goes away, I look and I say, hey, God, you're doing it. It's working. And the newcomer don't even know it. So, miracle happening in their life and they don't even know it. And then 2 or 3, 4 weeks later, somebody says something humorous and they show us their teeth. And I said, thank you, God, for one more miracle. That's how important laughter is. Don't leave it outside. Bring it in with you. One more hook, and then we'll move on here and get this another couple of hours done here. And it's a hook called unconditional love. And those gals started covering me up with unconditional love that very first night, and I had no concept of what they were doing. I just knew that every time I went to a meeting, they met me with, how are you doing? Do you have any questions? What can we do for you? How might we help you? And they were always trying to do for me, and they were never asking anything in return. And that was different from the way I had been living my life. And I didn't fully understand it, but I liked it. And I recognized that nobody there ever asked anything of me. They were always trying to do something for me. Well, then I went to a meeting one night, and guess what the topic was? Unconditional love. And now I had a name for it. And I began to get really involved in it then. So I finally, it didn't take too long before I appointed myself, now I didn't tell you, but I appointed myself as the king of sopping up unconditional love in the southeastern United States. And of course, being a good Al-Anon, the very next thing that zipped through here was, if you're going to be that good at sopping it up, how good are you going to be at giving it away? Yeah. And so I set out to learn all I could about unconditional love so I could be the best. And you know what I told you about old timers, that's where I was going to get my information. So I started going to these anniversaries and conventions and rubbing up against them old timers and asking them about unconditional love. And then I was in San Diego, California one spring. I had been invited out there to speak. And Friday night speaker was a guy that I had heard of since I had been in Al-Anon. I think out here you call them national speakers. Well, he was a supernatural speaker, national. And he was speaking that night, and I wanted to be there, you know. I was right down front, and he's talking, and just right in the middle of his talk, he says, "You know what?" He said, "I want to stop a minute. I want to tell you a little bit about the most important thing in my life today." He was 35 years sober at that time, and boy, my ears picked up. And then it dawned on me. I said, "Well, shoot, it's his recovery." But it wasn't. And it wasn't his wife, and it wasn't his job. He said, the most important thing to me in my life today is my relationship with God. Yeah. And he said, my relationship with God, he said, I call that the vertical. And he said, now my relationship with y'all, I call that the horizontal. And he said, what I've learned in 35 years is as long as I'm okay vertically, I'm okay horizontally. When I'm spiritually fit, I don't have any problems with you. So he said, what I do today is I spend my time trying to be the best child of God that I can be, where I can be spiritually fit, and I can fit in with you as I should. And he said, what I know today is that when I'm spiritually fit, God uses me as a channel of his love. And God loves you through me. He said, now I want you to be spiritually fit so that God will use you as a channel of his love and that God can love me through you. And then he turned, he said, oh, and by the way, God's love is unconditional. And the light bulb went on. That same old Bo running around all over the United States and Canada trying to find the right answer to the wrong question or the wrong answer to the right question. Unconditional love had that, I'm not responsible for how good it is or isn't. I'm responsible for my relationship with God. How about that? Ain't that something? And all of a sudden I left there with a new perspective, and it changed the way I was living my life, because you see, I came here just to learn how to keep her sober. And now all of a sudden, I've got a new relationship with God to work with. And my life's about to change. It's about to change. So those are the hooks that those gals used on me for 7 months. Until I had my moment of clarity. And I want to tell you about that moment of clarity that turned me around. I was sitting in my house on a Saturday morning, raining. Golly, it was raining. That deal about looking for the toad frogs, because it was raining. And I'm sitting in the den, and I got a cup of coffee, and my wife walks through the den, and she says, I think she said good morning. I'm really not sure. And when she said whatever she said, I went into a rage. A blind running rage. And I was hollering at God. And I said, God, what's the deal here? I'm driving the car. I'm getting them to the meetings. All I want to do is play golf. Can't it rain on Wednesday morning? And that tells you about what my relationship was with God right then. And Shirley, when I got through, Shirley looked at me and said, well, big boy, said, it's been 7 months. Who you going to blame this one on? Because I ain't had a drink in 7 months. And that's when I knew that what I'd been hearing here applied to me. And I was able to release her. And I went back to the Al-Anon group to get a sponsor. Wasn't any guys. I told you, Kirby never came back. But there was a lady there, and she was old enough to be my mom. She was one of the original founders of my home group in June of 1961. I knew her husband, who had been sober since 61, and I knew her son through some business dealings. And I knew Fran not real closely, but I knew her from her reputation in the community. She was a retired school principal. She was the only Methodist principal at the Catholic school, I think, that we ever had there. She said the father looked at her and said, we want you to run the school, not teach them. And so I went up to Fran and I asked her if she would help me. I didn't say be my sponsor. I said, I'm in trouble and I need some help. And she said, Bo, I'll be glad to help you, but she said, I need a commitment out of you tonight. She said, I'll help you the only way that I know how to help you, and that's in the steps. So if you're willing to make a conscious commitment to me tonight to take these 12 spiritual principles and implement them in your life, then son, I'm ready to take you by the hand and walk with you. And we started that walk. And About 90 days into it, we agreed that I had some issues I needed to talk to a man about. So she sent me out there in the AA room, and she said, you pick an AA man that's working a good 12-step program, and we'll make him part of this relationship. And I happened to pick the one she'd been married to forever. And Jim and Fran became my guides and my mentors. And see, God was in charge of that. I really didn't know what I was doing. And God gave me the best of AA and the best of Al-Anon, because he knew just how sick I was. And it's taken that. It's taken that. Yeah. And we got in, Jim got involved with us, and we started moving on. I decided it was time to write an inventory. I forgot to talk to them about it. And I couldn't get it written. It was just a total mess. So one day I was one of those sponsees that I didn't call until I'd run it in the ditch. But I mean, I'd murdered it before I called. And Fran was the greatest listener in the world. So I called that day to tell her that I couldn't get that inventory written, and I was blah, 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 blah. And she just waited till I took a breath. And she said, whatever this is sounds pretty serious. She said, I believe this might be a 5:30. Well, here's what 5:30 meant. When I had a problem, Fran or Jim would call a 5:30 meeting, and that would be held at their kitchen table. And Fran would have a pot of coffee made, and 5:30 was when Jim walked in from work. And I was not allowed to miss that meeting. I couldn't have any excuses. I was to be there. So at 5:30 that afternoon, I was sitting there, and Fran and I had a cup of coffee, and Jim walked in. So what's the problem? And I said, well, I'm trying to write an inventory, and I'm having all kind of trouble. And before I could say another word, Fran said, well, of course you're having trouble. I said, Fran, where do you get all this wisdom? 30 seconds ago, you didn't even know what the problem was. She said, Bo, if you're trying to do an inventory, you got to be in trouble. Because you're trying to do the 4th step, and you ain't through with the 3rd step. And she said, I've been telling you all along that these steps are numbered for dummies like you. And Jim looked at me and said, you're going to have to do something about your concept of God before we can go much farther. And he took me by the hand, and we walked down the hall and walked into his study and sat down at his desk, and he reached around there and got a book. And the front of the book said Alcoholics Anonymous. He got the big book. And he turned around to me, that's old Al-Anon, and he opened up that book to the chapter to the agnostic. And right there that afternoon, he took this Al-Anon into that book, into that chapter. And it was there that I found the God that I have today. Right there in the textbook, Alcoholics Anonymous, in the chapter to the agnostic. You think this old Al-Anon don't love that big book? I guarantee you. And you see, the God that I have today is a God of infinite power and of infinite love. It's no longer a judging and punishing God. It's a loving and forgiving God. And God spends so much time today loving me and forgiving me that he wouldn't have time to judge me and punish me if he wanted to. Yeah. And so, boy, I left there, and I was off and running. Just as quick as I could away from God. Because see, in that Baptist church, when you gave it all to God, they made you a song director. Or a Sunday school teacher. I had even seen it get so serious that some of them became missionaries. And I didn't want that. So I was running. And let me tell you how much my God loves me then and loves me today. He allows me to run just as hard and fast as I want to, anytime I want to, and get just as sick as I can need to get. And when I get just so sick that I can't stand it anymore, he I say, God, can't do it anymore. He's closer to my next breath to take the pain away. Yeah. See, my God has never taken my free will away from me. I have to give it to him. He doesn't reach in there and take it. He leaves it with me, and I have to give it to him. And that's the God that I have today. So full of miracles, so full of love, and the relationship that I have with him today, it's I would have never dreamed of anything like it. Like as I was walking from my room over here, and I'm talking to God. Yeah, me and God having a conversation as we come across the parking lot. And so once I had that fixed, then I began to really, really experience spiritual growth. Shirley was okay. She had a sponsor, and her sponsor was waiting for her. She didn't get to pick her sponsor. Her sponsor was waiting for her the day she got out of the treatment center. And see, back then the treatment centers were staffed by recovering people. Best treatment we ever had. And those recovering people up there knew my aunt and uncle down there in Bessemer. And each one of them had 20 years of sobriety. So that's the reason they sent us to Bessemer that day when we picked Shirley up on Saturday of Labor Day weekend. They knew they were sending us down there to Uncle James and Aunt Katie. And so we weren't allowed to go by the house when we picked her up. We went straight to the Bessemer AA group and joined the convoy where we went to Tuscaloosa for that anniversary I was telling you about. And so Aunt Katie told Shirley that Saturday, she said, look, she said, I know they talked to you about sponsors up there. She said, but let me share something with you. You got one, and it's me. And we're going to get into that big book, and we're going to walk through that 12-step recovery program, and you're going to grow spiritually, and you're going to get well. I was there. I heard her tell her that. We asked the kids to go to ALANON 4 meetings a week. A meeting a week for 4 weeks. Sissy went to it, 13 years old. It wasn't but 2 years later that we heard her sharing at a convention where she had admitted that the summer that her mom went into treatment, Sissy was contemplating suicide. And we missed it. Totally missed it. She had already told all her school friends that she wouldn't be back in September because she couldn't stand the pain. Yeah. So she stayed in Al-Anon till she was 20 years old. She came on into Al-Anon, and she's 46 years old today with 33 years of Al-Anon and Al-Anon. Yeah. Mike went to his 4 meetings, said it wasn't for him. He had other things to do. It's called chasing. And he was good at it. Yeah. But you know what? Mike's life changed, and his attitude changed, and his thinking changed. And it's because the only way I know to tell you, explain that to you is, if you live in a home where there's active alcoholism, you're going to be affected. If you live in a home where, based on spiritual values and spiritual principles are acted out, you will be affected. And so Mike had his program. It just wasn't. Now he would come in from school, and he'd look at Sissy and he'd say, "Sissy, I got a problem. Come on, my room or your room?" And Sissy would grab her Al-Anon book, and off they'd go. And they did that. He did that one day, and they went in his room and closed the door, and they stayed in there about an hour and a half. They come out, and Shirley looked at Mike, and Mike said, "Mike, what was that about?" And he said, "Oh, Mom, it was a closed meeting." So we're off and running, and our life, the Templin family is coming back together. We're experiencing some financial growth. You know, that's all part of the problems we bring in here. and we were getting well. We were getting healthy, and so we decided that we'd do something that we hadn't been able to do in a long time, and that was we would take a vacation. And we were going to ride the Amtrak from up to Washington, D.C. Shirley had an aunt and uncle that lived in Washington, D.C., and we were going to go up there and stay with them a week and give the kids the opportunity to, see the Capitol. And so we were making all those plans. Sissy had finished her first year of college, and she had just moved back home. And we were a week away from going on vacation when we lost Mike. Mike was killed at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night by a drunk driver. And the three policemen that had to come to our door and tell us that one of them had been his Little League coach. And so that's called life. It's called life. But let me tell you something. I don't want to dwell on so much on on Mike's death. I want to dwell on what happened following his death and the part that you guys and gals played in this. Because you see, at midnight that night, I called Jim and Fran and told them what had happened. And Fran said, hang the phone up. And I said, I don't want to. And she said, you've got to. I said, I can't come to you as long as I'm talking to you on the phone. Now, let me tell you, folks, 12 steps on the wall is 12 steps on the wall. 12 steps in a book is 12 steps on a page. 12 steps in action is something to behold. And I believe today, I know today from my own experience, that when we gather together, we create a spiritual power that my mind is not capable of comprehending. That power's here this weekend. I hope you feel it. It's just more than I can comprehend, but it's always been enough. That aunt and uncle that we talked about, I talked about in Washington. As soon as he heard about it, he jumped in the car and came to our house. And he was a deacon in the Baptist church up there in Silver Spring, Maryland, had been for 25 years. And he sat there in our house from Wednesday until Sunday and watched y'all come and go, and watched y'all never leave us alone for 24 hours a day. The church came by and brought that fried chicken, and they went on home. Our family members came, but they had kids to get in school and things like that to do, and not y'all. You came and you put your arms around us and you said, look, we don't have the answer. What we have is open arms and a big heart and soft shoulders, and if you will allow us, we're going to love you through this thing. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. The uncle from Washington, he got ready to go home on Sunday. He sat down with a cup of coffee with me and Shirley, and he said, look, I don't know a whole lot about AA and Al-Anon. I know what it's done for y'all, but I don't know a whole lot about it. But let me tell you something. I've sat in your living room from Wednesday until today, and I've watched your people come and go and take care of you. And he said, and I've sat over and felt closer to God than I've ever felt in my life. He said, God was here. God was here. That's because y'all were there. Y'all were there. So, I'm going to have to hustle here, but I got to tell you the last thing that I heard my son speak. Mike was still living at home. He was 20 years old. Shirley had told him he could live there till he was 35, no matter what I said. And it was Tuesday morning, and he was leaving to go to work. He had a great job. He didn't want to go to college. He used to say, you know, Sissy got the books and I got the looks. And but he was leaving to go to work, and he stopped at my chair where I was sitting there with a cup of coffee. He said, "I'm going to work, Dad." And he started for the front door, and he got about halfway to the front door, and he stopped and turned around and looked me dead in the eye. He said, "I love you, Dad." And out the door he went. That was the last words I heard my son speak. I said, "I love you, Dad." And I'm here this weekend to say thank you for teaching us to live that way. We wasn't living that way when we got here. We learned it all from you. So then we had to start that walk through that long, dark valley. And I know today that I have walked through the longest, darkest valley that a parent will ever have to walk through. Something could happen to Sissy, but it wouldn't be any darker, it wouldn't be any longer. But what I know today, and what I'm here to share with you today, is that I could not make that walk alone. But all the way through that dark tunnel, you had this hand, and God had this hand. And I don't believe this today, I know this. I know that there's not anything out there that this world can throw at me that I can't walk through. As long as I stay here with you and you got this hand and God's got this hand. Just bring it on. Bring it on. We can do it. We can do it. What a power. What a power. Well, Sissy found her knight in shining armor. We thought he didn't come in riding a great white steed. He came in astride the textbook Alcoholics Anonymous. We was hoping that it would be an Al-Anon. We figured it'd be a program person, but it wasn't. It was an AA. Bob had 5 years of fantastic recovery. I had told Sissy for years that whenever he got there, whoever he was, tell him, "Don't come to me asking for her hand. Come to me with a financial statement." But I knew Bob, and I knew some of his wreckage of the past, so I told her, "Well, just forget about that. We won't." And so they dated for about a year after Mike was killed, and then they got married. And then in 1997, Shirley and I decided that we wanted to move out in the country. We wanted to leave the city. So we sold our house, and I got to hunting us some property, and we're land barons now down there in West Blockton. We got 2 acres. And it's just 2 acres on a gentle slope on the side of a hill. And we call it Serenity Hill. Because if you show up down there on a good day when everybody's doing pretty good and there ain't no big problems, you can find some serenity there. Sure can. And Bob and Sissy throwed a fit and said they wanted to go with us. Well, they was living in a condo they couldn't afford. They didn't have any money. So Shirley and I took the money that we had from the sale of the house, and we bought the property, and then we bought 2 manufactured homes. We couldn't afford to build 2 homes, but we bought 2 manufactured homes and put one on top of the hill for me and Shirley, and one on the bottom of the hill for Bob and Sissy. And when we got about the business of living again. And then 1999, we found out that Sissy had an aneurysm in her brain, and I went off at God. I went off at God again. What's going on, God? You got my boy? We're going to meetings. We're sponsoring folks. Just what the heck is going on here? Completely missed the part about God directing us to the aneurysm where they could go in there and fix it before it ruptured. Missed that. So, But in 1999, Sissy was operated on, and they blocked the aneurysm, and she's had no problems with it since then. She's been totally healthy since then. In 2002, I had to have an operation on my spine. I had to have a lower lumbar fusion done. And the important part about that was the doctor made me go on disability. I didn't want to, I wasn't ready, but I did. And so here I am. I'm the height of a recovering guy. Got a wife still working. got a watch, still work. I used to tell people, I said, I got two things in my life working, that's my wife and my watch. And I check every morning to make sure it's ticking and she's leaving to go to work. Well, Spook, at the lab, Spook had wandered up our driveway one day and adopted us. She was about 1.5 years old at that time. We don't know her history, don't know where she came from. We just know that she was real clean and just a fun dog. She's got a white flash here, like a lot of the labs do, and then her right rear paw is white. But other than that, she's a black lab. And so me and Spook were sitting up there on top of the hill one day. And I looked at Spook, and I said, you know what, Spook? We ain't got nothing to do. I said, look out there, the grass is cut. Look at my truck. My truck's washed. House is vacuumed. Clothes are washed. I didn't say I did all those things. I just said those things were done. And we had nothing to do. So the next thing I heard coming out of my mouth was, God, I don't have anything to do. I made a deal with you years ago when I was still working, and I told you that when I surrendered to you, that I would go wherever you wanted me to go and do whatever you needed me to do. But I was going to leave the schedule up to you because I was still working. And I said, God, you did a real good job of that. But I said, God, I'm reporting in today. I don't work anymore. I don't have a job. I'm available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to do your work, God. And I want to make sure that you know that I understand that. All I can tell you, folks, is if you're not ready to get busy, don't have that talk with God. Because you're going to get busy. You're going to get busy, but it's going to be the greatest life you ever lived. Greatest, you're going to get to go to Taos. Yeah. Other places. Yeah. Doing God's work. And if that's my sponsor, you tell him I'm behaving. So I'm getting close to running out of time here. And I want to let you know that in February, I had the biggest scare I've ever had. I got sicker than I've ever been in my life. And I ended up in an intensive care unit, and I was totally out of my mind. I had a blood sugar of 550, and I had double pneumonia, and I had intestinal flu. And I was running out of oxygen. And I got real scared. Because, see, 2 weeks I'll be 72 years old. And I ain't through. And so I had a vision while I was in there, while I was out there in one of those. If any of you've ever been through this, you know what I'm talking about. You're out there and you don't know where you are. You're not in reality. And I was in this place, and there was stuff surrounding me that looked like chocolate. Not hard chocolate, just chocolate. and I was real cold, and I was real scared because I didn't know where I was and I didn't know what was happening. And I remember coming out of my mouth, I said, God, I don't know what's going on here. What I know is, God, that I'm real scared and that I'm real cold. And God, if this is my time to go, you know I'm ready. You know I'm okay. And you know I'm ready. And if this is the time, God, let's go ahead and do it. And let's not make Shirley hurt anymore. And let's do the deal. And all of a sudden out there in that chocolate, a hole came open. And then you know how a kaleidoscope will start opening and peel its way open. That's how that hole did. Still, it got bigger and bigger. And then when I could see through the hole, it was the most beautiful blue sky with white puffy clouds you've ever seen. And the next thing I knew, I was back in that ICU and I was awake. And I knew that God wasn't through with me. I knew it. I never heard him speak. We didn't get to shake hands. But I got his message. So I'm on the road again, doing the deal. And I'm fixing to close this thing. I'm going to close it the way I always close my talk. I'm going to close it by making a deal with you people in this room. And here's the deal. I'm one of those Al-Anons that's never seen the burning bush or felt the cool breeze, and I've never seen the flash of light. But I talked to my God today more than I've ever talked to God in my life. And when my God speaks back to me today, darn if it doesn't look and sound a whole lot like you. You are my channel. You are my channel. That's how vital you are to me. So knowing that now, here's the deal. I'm going to keep coming back. Rooms like this full of folks like you. Now, your part of the deal is I want you to keep coming back. Rooms like this full of folks like us. And I keep coming back and you keep coming back, then somewhere down the road, our paths will cross again as we trudge this road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Thank you so much.